Hello, I am Vinny from Guitar, and we are very kindly joined by Michael of Arch Enemy. Thank you so much for taking the time out, Michael. How's it going?
Going very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we're here today talking about, you've got a new album coming out, 25 years of Arch Enemy. It's the 11th studio album, I believe. So you've kind of been releasing something like an album every 2 or 3 years, give or take.
Sure, yeah.
And then this one, obviously, for obvious reasons, which we don't really need to go too much into detail about, it's been a little bit longer, right? Yeah. It's been a little bit longer. So,
well, yeah, it's going to be about 5 years between albums.
Yes. Yeah. So,
like a big band, like a really big band, right? You have to wait. We're so massively rich and famous, and in our jet set lives, we don't have time to make music anymore. No, but yeah, seriously, yeah, of course, the whole situation that happened over the last few years affected even Arch Enemy. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, I've been very privileged to have a quick listen through to the record as well, and obviously I can say it sounds amazing. And one thing that I really noticed is just sort of how much time and effort has been put into making sure that it is, you know, a really amazingly produced record, and the songwriting is very sort of like broad in a way that there's lots of different sort of sounds that you guys are going for, just in terms of like guitar playing, and almost like the genre kind of changes in bits, and there's lots going on, and it's all sounds really, really great. And obviously we're a guitar shop, so we'll be definitely talking a lot about guitars. So could you just, I mean, summarize just what the sort of process was for this record, how it kind of started?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it started with just collecting ideas, as always, just little fragments of, you know, melodies, riffs. You know, I'm always collecting those on my phone or whatever. You know, if I come up with something backstage or in a hotel room or at home, you know, I just quickly throw it down, and then I develop all my ideas together with our drummer Daniel, who is like really great with the home recording and programming drums and all that. So we do the demos that way together and build up the songs from there. And you know, this time was no different. You know, we you know, it's just a matter of, you know, getting to work. You know, when you feel ready. There's always like a time when you feel like, now I feel like, you know, there's always a point, you know, when you just made a record, you feel like, that's it, I don't think I can do any better. And you go on the road, and, you know, we're very fortunate, you know, we play all over the world. And it takes us a couple of years normally to go around the world a few times and perform for the fans. And then it comes to that point where it's just like, you know, you feel like, I want to make some new music. And, I just want to go and make demos again.
Yes, yeah. So, in terms of actually when you were recording the record, we were talking a little bit just before we started rolling about your signature guitar and you know, stuff that you kind of use, which looks amazing, nice and shiny and reflective. Which I bet that looks really great under all the stage lights as well. Yeah, yeah. So in terms of like amps, effects, are you kind of using different things for every song, or are you kind of sticking to one formula and then maybe?
Well, it's changed really, hasn't it? A lot. The last few albums we've made, you know, in more like in the modern era of Arch Enemy, I should say. You know, it's gone more into it. It's shifted from where, you know, we used to go into the studio and set the guitar sound, like, you know, get the guitar sound with our amps, with our cabs, and get that guitar tone that we wanted for the album. And you committed to that tone, and then you started recording and started tracking all the guitars. You know, I always track 4 rhythm guitar tracks on the album. 4. Yeah, so it's like just building up this wall of monstrous metal guitar, you know, and then but now it's changed, you know. So now we usually just track with, you know, we get a clean DI, you know, we track with something like a Kemper or something like that, or a plug-in, and then we get the clean DI. This is talking rhythm guitar tracks, and then that's what we do. So then the actual guitar tone, I don't really know what it's going to sound like exactly until the mix. So the mix has become such a bigger part of it now. The guitar sound is really determined in the reamping process in the mix.
Yeah. And do you find that that's kind of changed almost your workflow in the studio and what you're focusing on and what you're thinking about?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So rather than tones, are you spending more time in sort of just like nailing everything to kind of be like, if you're doing 4 tracks, I'm guessing you're focusing a lot of time on making things sort of sync up nicely, or do you like a bit of difference in?
Oh no, it's like I just go for very tight, you know. So it's that's a lot of work, you know. It takes a lot of time, you know. We always have a lot of songs, and you know, there are 4 guitar tracks for each of those songs, and then it's just a matter of getting it all tight and nice and ready, and a good clean DI signal that can be reamped. But when it comes to the melody lines that we have a lot of, and all the harmony guitars and all the guitar solos, then I go the opposite way. Then I go into a studio where I have like amps and cabs and, you know, stereo like setup with cabs and heads and you know, echoes and stuff like this. You know, I like to work in that way, and because I'm old school enough where when I track leads, I like to have, I play off the sound, you know, that I have, you know, so I don't really like recording, you know, with a simulation sort of thing for that. You know, I like to do the real deal when it comes to that, yeah.
So like real amps kind of just responding to your playing. And
exactly, yeah, and then exactly, and then if you hold on to a note and it starts feeding back in a certain way, then that influences how I'm going to play the next lick or something like that, you know. That's just what I like, you know, that's what I like to do.
Yeah, so in terms of those types of tones then, is that where you kind of have like a more sort of focused idea of your guitar sound in terms of what amps you're using? And
absolutely, yeah.
So what sort of amps are you using in those?
Well, it's usually a variety. It can be whatever. It can be Marshall, you know, I use a lot of Marshall gear live as well. But it can also be like stuff like Engel or, you know, stuff like that, you know, just whatever really. I mean, sometimes there's just something in the studio that sounds cool as well, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I have a collection of old Marshalls. I have a lot of the 2205 800s, 50-watt ones that I like. So I have one in particular that sounds really quite remarkable. I use that a lot. But sometimes there's something in the studio that I've never heard of, you know, some guy's brought a new cab that he's built, and you know how it is in studios, and you know, you just, oh, actually sounds really cool, so let's go with that, you know. I'm just really open-minded when it comes to those kind of things. I mean, I know I have a sound in my head, but whatever it takes to get to that point, you know, it doesn't really, I'm not really particular about how we get there, you know, as long as we get there.
Yeah, and that's obviously such a great sort of mentality to have, because I think, you know, sometimes you almost don't realise how good something is going to sound until you actually try it out, and I guess a lot of times it's very easy to get stuck on one thing of, I use this amp and I use this pedal and I use this and that, and sometimes just kind of...
I know, yeah. It's the same with guitars as well. I mean, I use a lot of my signature guitars in the studio as well. I had like a Burgundy US Custom Dean, one of my models, but it's like a sparkle burgundy. It's a very beautiful US-made guitar, and I used that for a lot of the rhythm tracks. But then when it came to the solos, sometimes I wanted a bar, so I had like I have quite a vast collection of guitars, or I hoard everything like that, really, pedals and amps and guitars. So, you know, a lot of stuff came out of the storage, and you know, I had about 4 or 5 guitars in the studio that I would just go to whatever was needed, you know. And sometimes I just like to switch it up, you know. It's like I wanted more of this kind of, you know, a different guitar would give me a different approach, you know, every time I pick up a guitar. That's why I've got a lot of guitars, because I always, when I get a new guitar, when I purchase a new one, or acquire a new guitar, I tend to write a few songs on that guitar, and I figure they've kind of paid for themselves then.
Yeah, do you find that sometimes when you like play a different guitar, all of a sudden different ideas come out?
Absolutely, yeah, that's what I mean, yeah. So it's just like, well, then that, you know, that guitar, they kind of pay for themselves, that guitar, I feel. That's my
as long as
my story.
There's always a good excuse to buy another guitar, isn't there?
There is, yeah. There's a lot of memes about that, of course, but it's true.
I want to talk a little bit about the signature guitar, but before we go there, I just wanted to ask, in terms of writing for this new record, obviously you guys have been a band for a long time, and I can imagine, you know, it gets to a point where almost it might become quite difficult to kind of find variation in your writing. And the thing I find about this record is there's a lot of stuff that still sticks to your sort of general sound, but then there's a lot of parts that kind of are doing something different and do feel different, and there's a lot of range in it. Did you have any different approach to the way that you were writing, or do you feel now at this point you've kind of got a set idea of where you're going to go with things?
I'm very open-minded, you know, and I think, and it's also the fact that between every album there always is those 2-3 years that passes, right? Mm-hmm. Because we do an incredible amount of touring activity, so there's always that natural time in between that passes between the records, and in that time, I'm also, of course, traveling, meeting new people, jamming with different people. I'm hearing new music, or I'm getting into old music that I haven't heard before, and all of that just kind of influences me a little bit, I guess, inspires me, I should say, mm-hmm. to just continue this journey in Arch Enemy. So there's always something new, a few new angles, and it's kind of never ending. I'm a self-taught guitarist. I'm always discovering new things, and it might be something that's like you should learn within the first few years of playing guitar, but I'm joking, but you know what I mean. It's like it can be, you stumble upon, I didn't know you could do that, or there's a new way of,
sure,
phrasing this thing, or putting these, stacking these harmonies or whatever. Just little new, or it's just little simple songwriting things. Like we've never had a song that starts like that, and it's like that. That becomes like a way of approaching it. What don't we have, for the show? Like we don't have one that just starts with the bass. Okay, let's have a song that starts with the bass.
Sure.
Yeah. It's just, it can be, it's mundane things like that maybe, but it's just those small details, and then you just build upon that, And more I'm about really, I try to, I come from a background with writing very complex guitar arrangements, very sort of, I guess what would be called the beginning of like technical metal, or, mm-hmm. Very ambitious sort of riffing approach, but I've kind of like moved to, I really do enjoy trying to come up with very like simple ideas that have not been done a million times before.
Yeah.
And I find that those translate so well onto live stage as well, when we have something very simple and effective, yet very direct sounding stuff. And
that kind of leads into the next question I was going to ask about. Obviously, you've got these very, as you said, sort of like ambitious sounding guitarists where there's so many things, you've got like harmonies and lots of layers, and it's very big, and like it's in some ways epic sounding almost. So
course, yeah.
How do you translate that studio sound to your live sound? Where do you kind of have the two things meet in the middle?
Well, I think, fans have that sound in their head from the album or from the singles when they go and see us live. So I think a lot of it, you just fill it in yourself as a spectator or as an audience member. You just kind of, you fill in the blanks yourself almost. I do that when I see bands. I'm almost hearing that third guitar harmony in my head, even though it's not there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's or that extra vocal layering or whatever. You just kind of like, you're so used to it from the recorded version that you almost imagine it being there when you see the band live. And I think that, and I've always thought that, live is live and studio is studio. I just separate them, I think, live, I think we're much more aggressive maybe than on the albums. There's just that extra level of energy and intensity in a live performance that's just so hard to recreate in the studio.
Yeah.
And I like to create, it's like two different things. I love to create that perfect version of the song in the studio, and then live it's more just about the life, things will happen. Unpredictable or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it as well.
Absolutely.
So these new songs, how much have they kind of been road tested and played? Obviously, without going too much into it, there's been 2 years of no shows. You were just saying a second ago that you first tour in a long time.
Yeah, we just came back now. We just did a tour in North America, we hadn't been on stage for 2.5 years, and we played the 3 singles that we had out at the time when we were doing that tour. So it was Deceiver, Handshake with Hell, and House of Mirrors, and they went down. That was some of the best reactions we had on the whole show. So they were going down very, very well, and I don't know why that is, but we're always so lucky or fortunate or something with our new music. Always seems to be very, very popular with our fan base. So just
that's a great thing to have.
It is a great thing to have. It is great, yeah. It just kind of it's very gratifying, and it's super cool, because we write these songs, and you obviously hope that people are going to like them. as much as we do. And
Yeah.
then, it's been great. And, the reaction, like I said, it was great on the tour. So we're very energized and looking forward to playing more new stuff live. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure all of your fans that might be watching this should be very excited to hear some of the other songs, because they sound amazing. And
we just put
can't
out a
wait to
new
hear
one
how they
called Sunset Over the Empire. It was a faster song, and I'm looking forward to playing that live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should we talk a little bit about your
Sure.
signature guitar? So you've got a few different variations
Look at that.
on the theme, right? So this has got a very cool sort of
This got
mirror
like a
finish.
mirror plate, top plate on it, or whatever you call it, and then all chromed out.
Yeah.
Even my signature pickup here that I do with Dean guitars is also like a chromed out version of it. And it's this is a guitar we've been doing for years, but this is obviously a very sort of cool variation on it. I call it the Tin Man.
That's a good name. I like that. So what's consistent across all the across all the
Well,
sort
the
of models
22
in which you
fret
like?
and mahogany body, and like I said, 2 humbucker pickups, and the string through, which I love for the sustain. And it's got the V headstock, the classic Dean guitar V headstock, and
You've got obviously taken the paint away from the
I
back.
have,
You
but
like
this
a
is something I do in mine. They tell me that Dean guitars tell me that the end consumer doesn't like to
right.
buy a guitar that doesn't have paint on the neck.
Right.
'Cause I guess it looks like it's a bolt-on neck,
Sure.
but it's actually a set neck, right? But it's I just like to take that right off for me, because it just, if you sweat a little bit live, I can get stuck a little bit on the paint when I want to go from A to B.
Yeah, because a lot of your playing is very much all over the neck, right? So you're going
and
very
it's
quickly from one to the
it's
other.
very high. We play at very high speeds, and you're riffing down here. Next second, then you got a 12-second guitar solo that's all happening up here, and you need to get there very quickly and back down there again. And I just like the feel of the wood. That's very sort of doesn't. For me, it's less sticky or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how long have you had these signatures? Sort of when did the first?
I signed up with them, I think, in 2008. I was with another company, and I got the opportunity to join the Dean guitar company family, and that's what I did. And we pretty much quickly put out a version of this guitar, and then we've had one that was been very successful, which is like a white one with a splatter. It's called Splatter, I guess. Yeah. And that's been very successful. That we've sold a ton of those, and thankfully. But these are, not super new, but it's one of the new ones that I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So why a V? What is it about the V that?
Now the V shape is really great. I think for me, I started playing it in the early '90s, and it's something that I really fell in love with. I mean, obviously, I liked the look before I had one. I was playing like Les Paul body or a Strat body before, but the V always appealed to me. It looks cool. I mean, back then, not a lot of people were playing. I mean, there were people playing them, but not to the degree, to the extent that today, almost every metal band has a V player, right? But that back then it was not as common, and I just like the look of it. Like. KK Downing or Michael Schenker, or that kind of like classic 80s metal look or whatever. Yeah, I really like it. And in the studio I love to play them, because people don't believe me that people always try to play a V like this.
Well, I was going to say,
I can't. They don't know how to play them.
For me, sitting down with a V is
but the trick is you put it right there, right, and then you end up with this position, which is almost like the ultimate, classical. So for me, it's like the ultimate guitar to sit down and play with, actually, to play while sitting down. And then alive as well, it's great. But I tend to like creep up. I'm like hunched over. So, my back's all messed up and my hips. But that's all the price you have to pay for the sacrifice we make for heavy metal.
I love that. I love that. So you said that you've got a signature pickup as well. Is there anything in particular you look for?
It's kind of similar to what I guess something like a classic Seymour Duncan JB or something like that, which I used to play before. but this is just wound just a little bit harder, and but you know, it's got that very balanced output, and I'm a passive pickup guy because player because I mean, I do like the tightness and the, you know, some of the active pickups, but for me, my kind of playing is a little bit more based around. It's not. I like to have that more open sound, you know, and also what I put in is what I want to get out of back. So it's a little bit more difficult. It's not as quiet. It's not as controlled as an active pickup, maybe. But this is what I prefer. So that's a big part of the Arch Enemy sound as well. It's this big, wide open guitar sound.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll just a couple more questions before we end it there. So in terms of like looking back on sort of the last 25 years and, you know, 11th album, and things obviously are still seem to be very exciting in terms of like your fans are still responding great to things and stuff like that. Looking back on it all, is there anything that maybe you would have liked to have kind of known sooner in terms of like guitar playing and stuff like that, or do you find that you've kind of enjoyed the experience?
I've enjoyed the ride, you know. I mean, you know, I started, you know, in the beginning, my first recordings that people can hear on albums, old albums, and I'm still developing as a player there. You can hear me make these huge, you know, you're just becoming a much better player, making these big steps on those first albums that I had out. Now, of course, I'm not making the same jumps, you know. It's difficult to raise the bar, you know, as you keep on going, right?
Sure.
As a songwriter, as a guitarist and everything, you know. But, you know, we try, and we you know, it's always we're still very enthusiastic. We still love doing this. And, you know, I mean, we're so fortunate, you know, the band is bigger than ever. You know, we've never been as popular as we are now on a worldwide basis. So it's just super exciting, you know. I mean, you'd think it's just been a very long journey. I guess what you're asking is, I mean, if I knew that it was going to be such a long road ahead, maybe. But, you know, I mean, I'm kind of happy about that because, you know, if we'd peaked, you know, 15 years ago, then and we were on a slow sort of decline or just hanging in there, it'd be different, wouldn't it? It'd be like a different kind of vibe. But it's just like, it's just getting more and more opportunities opening up for us all the time.
It's an amazing achievement to kind of be at this point and be able to look back on such like a rich, you know.
Yeah, it's incredible. I don't really look in the rear view mirror that much, but, you know, we just celebrated last year the 25th anniversary of the band. And, you know, now I was writing pieces, I was writing things, listening to the old albums and writing down my memories about them. Just random memories, and putting them up on our Arch Enemy social media, and that was really cool, you know, to do that. And of course, just going back and really listening to our older albums for the first time in a long time, you know. I mean, of course, I'll hear songs here and there. I can't avoid them, but then there's certain songs that you just haven't listened to
you just haven't been in the live set or whatever.
I know, exactly. And they're just kind of tucked away there, you know, deep album sort of cuts, and super cool, and just like really interesting to hear where we were at, you know, where I was at as a player. So it's super cool. I'm just really thankful for the whole thing. You know, it's been great, and it's been a life of metal, you know. And I can't
it's a good life to lead.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, it's so bizarre. You know, I don't have any hobbies outside of this. I don't have any interests really. So it's just all been about, since I was 13, 14. Getting that first guitar, riding on my bicycle with a gig bag on my back, you know, and going to rehearsal. I started in bands immediately, you know, and playing those first 70, 100 shows, even without a PA, just with a vocal PA and you know what I mean? Just
We've all been there.
yeah, and then getting into a van and going on tour, and then, you know, reaching, you know, it's just been this whole long journey, you know, getting in tour buses and trucks and flying around the world. I mean, it's just, sometimes I think is that, you know, when I look back on my life, I think it's just, I've been very, it's just been super cool. But it's kind of interesting. But at the same time, I'm a very one-dimensional person, you know. I get up every day and I'm just focused on Arch Enemy, and, you know, it's just, I'm just a very sort of, I'm very happy to do the same thing every day. So that's maybe a part of it.
I think the
Single-mindedness.
well, the passion that you have for it still to this day, obviously, definitely shows through in the music, and
Thank you.
I definitely see that. One last question before we wrap up. I like to always ask people this at the end.
Oh shit.
If you had one bit of, it could be guitar related, doesn't necessarily have to be, but one little bit of advice you'd like to give anyone, be they a world touring musician or someone who's just picked up a guitar for the first time, what would it be?
As far as guitar playing, or?
Could be guitar playing, could be just music in general, playing music, being in the band.
Yeah, I mean, when I came up, it's such a different landscape to what it is now. So people usually ask me, like, what advice do you have for a young band starting out now? I think that's not really a good question for me, because when I grew up, it was just a completely different landscape. There are different opportunities now or less or more, I don't know, than what. They're certainly different to what I had. But I think at the core of it, it's still the same. It's just you should really be passionate about it. Don't go into this with the wrong expectation or I never really expected anything back from it. I was only about giving, I just wanted to create music. I wanted to play guitar. I just wanted to be in a band, in a gang. That's what it was like then. Nowadays, people play more at home, maybe. People learn to play in a sort of a software recording session or something. I learned to play guitar in a rehearsal room with a bunch of other players, a drummer and bass player and so forth. So I mean, I think, it's just a little bit different nowadays, but I think at the core of it, it's still the same. You should stay true to yourself and what you want to do, and don't let people influence you too much. I don't really listen to other people's opinions. I think that's a part of why I'm still here.
Yeah, just go with what you know. Trust yourself.
Yeah, you just have some balls or ovaries or whatever. Just believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing, Michael. Thank you so much for taking the time out and chatting to us. I've been Vinny from Guitar Guitar.
I've been Michael Amott from Arch Enemy, and you are you.
Cheers, man. Thank you. That was great.